We're living in the final part of the last days, undoubtedly the final part of the final part of the last days.
This is the end of the world. This is the end of the world.
Hello and welcome to the return of the Last Days Livestream, the live stream that helps us all navigate our way through the apocalypse with a little bit of humour and levity. So yes, some of you might remember that this show began as the coronavirus lockdown live stream way back in COVID times, and during that time we changed the title, or I changed the title to the Last Days Livestream. And I haven't done this for a number of years, shall we say. Quite a few things have happened in the intervening period. And it just occurred to me that I really miss doing live streams. I miss the back and forth of interacting with my audience. And the funny thing is that we're still in the last days, aren't we? That's the beauty of the last days, is they just keep going on and on and on. So, as Stephen Lett put it there, we are in the last of the last days. Well, now we're in the last of the last of the last of the last days, I suppose. But in all seriousness, there are a lot of things happening, aren't there, right now, kind of globally and geopolitically, which do cause people a certain element of dread. And when I did the initial live stream, it was in response to COVID. It just feels as though, you know, there's always something that groups, doomsday groups like Jehovah's Witnesses, latch onto that's going on in real life in order to force home their apocalyptic doomsday narrative. And perhaps there's space for a show like this to just put everything in context and to kind of ride out the apocalypse with a bit of humour. That's the aim of the show. I'm not completely sure how frequently I'll be doing this. A lot will depend on how well this is received today, I guess, and what the ratings are like. But it's possible that I could be returning on quite a frequent basis. Maybe I'll do it every Sunday, maybe every other Sunday. Who knows? We'll see. But with all of that said, let's take a few comments. We have a hello from Alex. A hello from Reasonable to Conclude. Demond Swagger Boy is laughing at the intro music. Exactly the same intro that I used, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago? Hello Sinners, says Serenity S. The introduction with Mad Stefan Lett, says Dietlinde Janssen. I'm just wondering whether, yes, we do have a few different platforms. So we have Facebook. Amy Maria says, an enthusiastic welcome back from America. Thank you so much, Amy. Jeff Lawler says, good to see you, Lloyd. And Arthur is here. You know what, Arthur? I'm going to send you a link, and if you want to wait in the green room, I'll bring you in at some point, and then we can have a little bit of a panel going. How's that? And by the way, before I bring you back, Arthur, if you want to come back, that is. I mean, maybe I haven't spoken to Arthur's agent, to be honest. But we do have the segment Sing Along with Arthur. So as long as there are no copyright breaches, I'm willing to do a Sing Along with Arthur. I still have the video intro. So let me send a link out to Arthur so that's out of the way. Bear with me one moment. And yeah, it would be nice to hear from Arthur if he's available. Maybe he isn't. On past shows, we've caught him in some odd moments, traversing the streets, no less, and still broadcasting. Natalie Sanchez says, good to see you, Lloyd Evans and Arthur Weber. Deep Linda says, nice break after a long day with Sky News, BBC and the summit in London. Welcome all. Well, Deep Linda, you know, you've kind of hit on something there. I've too have been watching Sky News over the last few days, including today. And that's what I was alluding to earlier. You know, there's a lot happening geopolitically right now that I'm sure will be getting certain Jehovah's Witnesses excited at, you know, at how apocalyptic things are seeming right now. And again, the whole point of this show is to just provide a little bit of relief from that and to put things in context. I mean, I do have, I guess, quite strong political views, but I'm going to try to rein those in a little bit because I realize that not all of you will have those views, and I want to try and make this as bipartisan a show as possible. Buff McLarge says, what are the Jehovah's Witnesses going to do when the King of the South no longer is the USA? It's a valid question. I mean, the whole, you could say, withdrawal of the United States from being the kind of leaders in terms of the global leaders in terms of the rule of law and the basic foundations of democracy, you could argue, and the rift at the moment between the USA and Europe poses questions for the whole paradigm of the Anglo-American world power, as it's called. So whether there will need to be some hasty rewrites of new light so that we get a different understanding of the immense image, who knows? Who knows what the ramifications will be, theologically, that is, for Jehovah's Witnesses. Nena Lee says, cool, glad you're back. Thank you so much, Nena. We have greetings from Germany. You know what? It's lovely to see 115 of you watching currently across all platforms, currently streaming simultaneously on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, I believe. So it's nice that with almost no notice whatsoever, we have over 100, which I consider, I always think of it in terms of how big is the audience if it were is it a Kingdom Hall meeting or is it an Assembly Hall meeting? And this is a fairly respectable Kingdom Hall meeting, in my point of view. How you doing, my man? Says Damas Italian Citizenship. There's a very specific username. I'm doing okay, thank you, Damas. I'm still, my pulse is still going. I still have a smile on my face, and I'm still chomping at the bit and feeling like I have something to contribute. I must just say, I'm not entirely happy with my camera setup today. I will try to, for some reason, my normal setup that works so well with my videos doesn't work so well for live streams, but I'm going to try to resolve that somehow. I will try to give you all a much better image in future shows. Hello from Ontario, Canada. Are you sure that's not Ontario, United States, Raven? I thought you guys were going to become the 51st state. Hello, Raven. It's lovely to see you pop up, and always a pleasure to see you on my socials whenever you surface. And you've also been supporting the channel for quite some time now. So thank you so much again. Jenny B says, hello, Lloyd. Hi, all. We've got Sebastian Sanchez from Australia. And Javin Loreen says, first time for me in one of your lives. Wow. Well, welcome, Javin. Arthur's pointing out that it's actually almost 5 years ago we started in 2020. So coronavirus lockdown live stream was 2020. So, yeah, and we're back for season 3. Thank you so much to Raven Tree Frog for your very kind super chat. Thank you for your work, Lloyd. Raven Micra. And also, thank you to Beauty Rest as well for your super chat. That's very, very helpful for the channel to progress and grow. It seems that Arthur Weber is currently in the process of joining. He's in the green room right now, waiting to see whether he can activate his camera so that we can see his lovely visage. Hello from the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. Hello there, Mike Baker. And I hires Mimi says, so glad you are doing okay, Lloyd. Rob from Michigan is in the house. Hello there, Rob. Dietlinda Janssen says, the King of the North must be Trump or Elon Musk now. Very exciting things happening right now, but I only see all this in a political view, as you put it, Lloyd. Yeah, look, we can joke about it, can't we? But there are those who will be concerned, shall we say, by the tone of current events. There's a rather ominous tone, isn't there? Nicole Mort Parker says, hi Lloyd, it's great to see you. Love that your live streams are back. Thank you so much, Nicole. Lovely to see a familiar face popping up. Long-time supporter of the channel and show, so thank you. Overlapping World Powers says, Buff McLarge Hugh. And Peter Miles says, hi from Germany. Would love to tell you all my name, but would be terrible for me. End of 60, father and grandfather. I have to remain PIMO. That's physically in, mentally out. Thank you for your hard work. You helped me a lot. So, wow, well, thank you, Peter. And all I would say is that I'm very grateful for any help I was able to provide you over the years. However, I strongly believe that in order to extricate yourself from the cult, it takes a great deal of strength and courage on the part of the individual. In other words, I'm making content that the overwhelming majority of nearly 9 million Jehovah's Witnesses currently are not watching because they lack the courage or bravery or situation right now, or the bandwidth in order to take in this information. But those like you who have that courage can make use of it and do something with the information and escape the mental servitude. So the credit goes to you, basically, is what I'm saying. And you have my respect and admiration. Jenny B has a serious question. Lloyd, do you believe in an antichrist? I assume you don't, but I would like to hear your thoughts. Well, the short answer, I suppose, is no. I don't believe in an antichrist, but that's because I don't consider the Bible to be God's inspired word. I'm open to the idea of maybe a deist higher power, but when I look at the Bible, I see a collection of documents that bear all of the hallmarks you might anticipate of being entirely man-made, and in some cases, in relation to specific stories or narratives, entirely fictitious. And so that causes me to not view the Bible with quite the reverence that believers in, say, Christianity might view it with. So I do think, in all seriousness, that Armageddon could happen, as in the end of the world as we know it. I think that it's within the power of humans, manifestly, if you've watched the film Oppenheimer or know anything about nuclear technology, it's within the power of humans to destroy themselves. So Armageddon can happen in that context. But if or when Armageddon happens, and I really hope it won't happen, at least not in the foreseeable future, if or when it happens, it won't be anything to do with the Bible or anything to do with Jesus or the Antichrist or heavenly Kenny Rogers lookalikes descending from the heavens on heavenly horses wielding heavenly bows and arrows. I don't think it's going to be anything remotely to do with that. But yes, we do, ironically, have the ability, and sadly and tragically have the ability to destroy ourselves. So I call it the Last Days Livestream, again, with the intention of adding a little bit of levity to the kind of doomsday narrative that cults like Jehovah's Witnesses would push. But in all seriousness, it is possible for us to destroy ourselves. We've shown that. But thank you for the question. It's nice to tackle a serious question on a serious topic on a live stream. I'm just going to bring in Arthur. He's not showing his... Arthur, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I hope our viewers can hear me as well, but my camera is having technical difficulties. Probably by the time we meet in the next episode of Season 3. Wow, I'm so excited about it. Hopefully I can get a proper audio-video setup that's working fine for both us here in the studio and our viewers at home.
That's wonderful to look forward to, Arthur, and so good of you to join us at the last minute. Before I proceed, I must just thank Reasonable to Conclude for your super chat, Lloyd. What to expect from the governing body this year? They are waiting for Norway appealing decision, plus the governing body is being sued in New York. Arthur, do you have anything to add on that question?
Well, I'm also expecting the outcome in the Norway situation. I'm really glad all of our friends there in Norway have done a wonderful job providing activism and showing the true face of the organization in front of the Norwegian government. Kudos to Jan Nilsen. He's done a tremendous job defending our cause, and wow,
Absolutely.
it's really positive to see what has been going on there.
I would second all of that. Yeah, Jan Nielsen and the other activists in Norway have been doing wonderful work. I've been kind of following and admiring from afar on social media. Look, I think that the Norwegian government are handling this properly. We always knew that Jehovah's Witnesses were going to appeal this as far as they possibly could. They want the right to inflict harm in people's lives and to not have the government tell them any differently. And so the rule of law is being followed. We can only... The problem is that when the rule of law is followed, just because it's being followed doesn't mean that we will automatically get justice.
Exactly.
So there's any number of reasons why there could be an unjust verdict in this. And I think we need to kind of brace ourselves for that, at least for that possibility. Mm-hmm. But the fact that the activists in Norway and elsewhere have been doing such wonderful work to bring this to the attention of the government, to cause the organization these problems and to put this pressure on the organization is a huge sets a huge precedent for the future and how
exactly in other countries that where the organization might face similar issues.
Exactly, it's blazing a trail really for activists in other countries to do similar, and so we will see. I mean, I've made videos before about possible changes that the governing body could make, and at least one or two of those changes have already happened. So I don't know whether I have any further predictions to make. I guess anything could happen with this current governing body 2.0, 3.0, whatever you want to call it. They've shown a remarkable propensity to pivot and flip-flop on any number of issues. So we shall see. We have also Blondie95. Hi Lloyd, thanks for all you do. Please keep delivering your life-altering content. Thank you so much, Blondie, for that very kind comment and the super chat. So let's take a question from Raven. Question, Lloyd, with charity registration status being called into question, like Norway, do you think it will spread globally? I guess probably some of my comments might have anticipated this question, but I would hope so. Is my answer. I would really hope that the activists in Norway have again blazed a trail and shown us a way of navigating the complexities of governmental intervention so that governments can hold cults like Jehovah's Witnesses more accountable. I don't know whether you'd concur, Arthur.
Well, I wanted to add on this because in many countries there are different laws about what it means to be a registered church or a charity or whatever. For example, the type of association called charity is, of course, a thing we know in Great Britain, but probably in other areas there are other conditions for churches to function, and they have more or less leeway depending on the legislature.
Indeed, it's always going to be complicated. Different governments have different constitutional constraints, shall we say, when it comes to what they can do with religions, and religion is more embedded in the kind of culture and laws of some countries than in others, and I'm speaking specifically about the United Kingdom, where my first-hand experience is that religion is literally part of the legislature. They have a bench in the House of Lords for the bishops of the Church of England, no less. Yeah. So that complicates things.
And it's also about the balance between human rights and the freedom of religion, freedom of religious expression.
Indeed, which, let's be honest, needs to be taken into consideration. I've been saying for a long time now that you can't just ban cults. It sounds cute, sounds like a solution, it sounds like a sensible measure to take, but what happens then is you're creating this Orwellian situation where certain beliefs are outlawed and where you're policing what happens in someone's brain. And I don't think any of us wants that situation, because if you can ban one set of beliefs, you can ban any number of sets of beliefs. We all need to have the intrinsic freedom to believe whatever we want to believe, even if other people consider it to be nonsense or indeed offensive. We need to have that right. But what we can't have is a situation where groups like Jehovah's Witnesses get to export misery on others, even those who have left. Because one of the basic human rights is that you get the freedom to leave a religion. And Jehovah's Witnesses can't, in all honesty, say that they have the freedom to leave their religion if they are being punished for doing so. That's the basic problem that I think Jehovah's Witnesses are having a hard time getting their heads around in Norway, or at least they do understand it and they're trying to confuse everybody on that issue.
Yeah, for example, in Romania, Jehovah's Witnesses, because, the Jehovah's Witnesses that are part of the Watchtower organization, they are considered as a registered church, because in Romania there are religious associations and churches, and these larger religious bodies like the Orthodox Church, the Baptist Union, Pentecostal, and so on, there are, I guess, 18 or 19 such churches, and Organizația Religioasă Martorii lui Jehova, which is the Romanian corporation used by Watchtower, is one of these registered churches.
Indeed. So, yeah, from country to country, it's going to be complicated. But I think the activists in Norway have done a wonderful job of explaining the position, and hopefully justice will prevail, although again there are no guarantees. There is an interesting question from Mo Lester. Lloyd, how much longer do you see this cult surviving? Surely the game is up for them within this century. Well, here's the thing, Mo. Religions are a difficult thing to get rid of, because we're talking about beliefs, we're talking about what the ideas essentially that happen in people's heads. And although you can get rid of organizations, or organizations can come and go, and they can go bankrupt, or they can fade into irrelevance, actual ideas tend to linger. And as a perfect example, just look at followers of Charles Taze Russell. There are still Russellites, or Bible students, in other words, those who don't identify as Jehovah's Witnesses, who identify specifically as followers of Charles Taze Russell, well over 100 years after his death. We're coming upon 110 years after his death. So, ideas can be tricky things to get rid of. And when I first began, or shortly after I began with my activism, 13 or so years ago, I got quite excited at the thought of, in my lifetime, seeing the organization going bankrupt. It seemed like a very real possibility to me, with some of the things that were happening at that time, with Bethel layoffs and downsizing and branch closures and that kind of thing. But I've come to kind of adjust my expectations. I think that all of those things I've mentioned, the branch closures, etc., with the organization adapting to the 21st century, making themselves leaner and more agile, and to a large degree they seem to have succeeded. They're still here. We're still talking about them. They may be almost unrecognizable from the organization that many of us can remember from 10, 20, 30 years ago, but they're still there. And I think, in all honesty, we're going to be seeing Jehovah's Witnesses for the foreseeable future. And I think almost indefinitely, we're going to see people who identify as Jehovah's Witnesses. The question is, will the organization be able to continue functioning? Will it be penalized by countries like the United States, by the United Kingdom? Will the leadership be held accountable? In which case, there would still be followers, I'm sure. But will the actual organization, will the leadership remain intact? I think for the foreseeable future, yes, it will. I think there needs to be a drastic change in how we understand cults and how we deal with cults, in order for us to see something like the collapse of Jehovah's Witnesses as a religious entity. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Arthur.
Yes, I second that wholeheartedly. Yes.
Okay. God, it's difficult being right. I was hoping it doesn't make for a very good debate. Okay.
Arguably, it seems this way because just like, for example, here in Romania, I don't know whether I should bring up the political situation here in Romania.
I think you should, actually, because I think that with greatest respect to many who are watching, and I include myself here, we don't always, we like to filter out any political news that's going to kind of upset us, and especially if it's happening in some distant country, we try to kind of just not think about it at all. But I know that there have been some quite distressing things happening in your particular country, Arthur.
Yes.
So it would be nice to hear your take on things.
So last year in November, we had elections, and we had both the presidential elections and the parliamentary elections. And after the first round of elections, a certain, no-name individual called Călin Georgescu, who proved to be a far-right extremist, won the first round. And of course, he is being supported by three of the most prominent right-wing parties in the parliament. That's AUR, the Alliance for the Unification of Romanians, POT, the Party of the Young People, and SOS Romania, headed by Diana Șoșoacă, a very vocal and also an extremist Euro-parliamentary member of the European Parliament, who made some very unpleasant remarks during one of the parliamentary sessions. It's been spoken about in the news back then.
Right.
And there's also one of the media outlets here in Romania, Realitatea Plus, who is fully supportive about Călin Georgescu and all these sovereignist politicians and parties and so on. And sometimes these people give out the impression that it's the will of the people as a whole to get Georgescu back as president and to resume the second round of because this I forgot to say
because you had problems, didn't you, with the election being kind of basically
it was
meddled
cancelled.
with.
The second round of the elections was cancelled because the intelligence agency in Romania discovered Russian interference using TikTok bots and all sorts of meddling with Georgescu's campaign.
Right.
And that's why the Constitutional Court decided to cancel the elections. And all these people thought that it was unfair because, well, the people voted. But the question is, why did they vote? Because they were influenced to vote.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that has kind of taken my generation by surprise, is this whole thing of elections being interfered with. And, you know, we've seen evidence of it in multiple countries now, and it is quite concerning. And I know that in Romania it's been a big problem. And I think the rise of the far right around the world is a very concerning development. Certainly in my lifetime, I never expected to see it. You know, I grew up. My grandfather was a merchant naval officer in World War II. Got torpedoed actually by the Nazis, but that's another story. And so I never thought that so soon after World War II we'd have to go through this whole question of, is fascism a good thing or not, you know? But it seems to be hip and groovy and trendy at the moment to be a fascist, certainly in large parts of Europe. So
and all these so-called sovereignists and anti-globalists, they also use religion as an argument, because the Romanian people is a Christian people, and it was built on Christian values of the traditional family, you know.
Okay.
So anti-woke, anti-queer, anti-everything that's progressive.
Mm-hmm. So obviously this is touching on you as well. So let's not get too sidetracked, but it is good to kind of get a bit of an update. From you, Arthur, and hopefully you will continue.
So my point was that how strong the religious sentiment is being used as a political weapon.
Yes, indeed.
And how the whole point of.
And how well intertwined religion is in politics globally.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
It's not to be underestimated. Let's take a comment. I appreciate all that you do, Lloyd. Would you know if a person can request a Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, to get access to Jehovah's Witness financial records. I am not in a position to say because I'm not a lawyer. However, I guess there's no harm in consulting with a lawyer in the relevant jurisdiction, because I don't know whether you mean in America or in another country, and whether you're doing it as an American or as a citizen of another country. But certainly if you feel as though there might be an opportunity to pursue any kind of information of that kind from the organization, and you can get maybe some free legal advice. I mean, nowadays you have all sorts of options like ChatGPT, don't you, for asking those sorts of questions. So just see how far you can get. It might be that you run up against a wall, but it's good that you are wanting to do what you can, because as we all know, when you're dealing with a corrupt organization, you need to follow the money, don't you? And what I wouldn't give personally to have access to that sort of information. So I don't know, but it's good that you're thinking along those lines, thinking outside the box, shall we say. Raven Tree Frog says, news in Canada. There is recommendation 430 that the government of Canada amend the Income Tax Act to remove the privileged status advancement of religion as a charitable purpose. Well, I would definitely support that amendment, and I hope that it prevails. And you ask, I think in another comment, Raven, whether you can post a link. It might get flagged as spam by the algorithm, but certainly by all means, I mean, you've at least mentioned it here, so I'm sure people can Google that and look into it. But I think that's a very astute and progressive motion, and it would be nice to see more countries move in that direction, because certainly advancing religion I don't think should be considered as charitable, because it's clearly being done with an agenda. Jamila says, do you think rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses are aware of the Australian Royal Commission and other ongoing lawsuits? And if so, how do you think they rationalise and justify it in their minds? I don't think the majority of Jehovah's Witnesses have a single clue about the Australian Royal Commission, much less ongoing lawsuits, because they're kept in the dark about these things, unfortunately. And when you are a Jehovah's Witness, you live in a bubble where none of the developments that might lead you to question the organisation, none of them are brought to your attention. It's only really if you step outside, or if you happen to accidentally fall upon the information, that you might be able to research it. But even if you were to discover about the Australian Royal Commission, cognitive dissonance can be a very, very pervasive thing, and can lead one to rationalise, like you say, and to come up with all sorts of reasons why Jehovah's Witnesses were dealt with in an unjust way by Australia, or why Satan might be behind it. And ultimately, if there are questions that you feel you can't answer, or that get a little bit too troubling for you, you always just think, well, I need this to be true. I'm going to put this to the back of my mind. The organisation must know better than me on this issue, so I'm just not going to think about it. That tends to be the way Jehovah's Witnesses think on these topics. I don't know whether you have anything to add there, Arthur.
No, you put it quite fine.
It's difficult being right all the time. Jamila adds, seriously thinking about breaking no contact and sending my parents some links to the Australian Royal Commission videos. Here's the thing. You need to do, Jamila or Yamila, I don't know how to pronounce your name. You need to do, what you feel is right. So there's that line in Star Wars where Obi-Wan Kenobi says, you must do what you think is right, of course, But sometimes, especially when we're dealing with a very delicate situation where the ones that we care about have their minds under the control of a cult. Sometimes it's worthwhile exercising maximum restraint and just being a little bit more strategic. Because as I've just explained, when you're in a cult, you will come up with any number of reasons why your group, your organization has the truth and everyone else is lying about them. Even if it's a link to an Australian Royal Commission finding or the findings or news articles, you name it, you can always find justifications. It's best, if possible, to approach it in a slightly more strategic way, make sure the lines of communication are open, and wait for them to come to you, wait for them to approach you. Because if you kind of approach them, they can feel confronted. Whereas if they're approaching you and they're trying to, say, encourage you to come back to the meetings, you can then use that opportunity to say, you know what, I really appreciate you inviting me to come back to the meetings. I understand that you're doing this from a place of caring and because you care about me and you want me to be okay. But here are my conscientious reasons why I just can't find it within myself to come back. And I understand you might not agree with them, but this is my perspective. So again, it takes a lot of restraint, and sometimes in the heat of the moment, we don't always think of the right things to say. But I liken it to diffusing a bomb. You know, you can have a bomb in your garden and think, oh no, I've got to get rid of this bomb, quick, grab it, you know, throw it, and of course that's going to set off the fuse. But to actually diffuse a bomb requires a great deal of patience and knowledge and thoughtfulness. So I don't know whether you have any
insight.
And thank you, Arthur, for triggering all of my viewers. And yes, godly insight, if that's how you want to think of things. Are you going to sing for us today, Arthur? Are we going to have a sing-along with Arthur? No.
No.
But we can maybe plan it for the next show.
Yes, we can do that. We can do that.
Let's take a few more comments. Drench says, can we all sign a petition for the government to do a financial audit, since they are using taxpayers' money as a grant and getting tax exemption for millions? What do you think? So again, I really do admire the Drench, your willingness to kind of go for the jugular and get out there and do something, you know. And I relate to having that fire in your belly, that burning sense of injustice and that desire to do something, to sign a petition. And what I would say is, if you really want to do that, you should go for it. And, you know, with no shame at all. And by all means, share the link to the petition and, you know, and so on and so forth. But what you might find from my experience as someone who's been down this route before is that petitions, though they sound impressive and it's something that people, it's like a call to action that people can rally behind. In my experience of doing activism now for, I think it's actually 14 years, it will be 14 years in October, I haven't heard of a single petition actually related to Jehovah's Witnesses that's actually done anything. In the United Kingdom, you have the option for setting up a petition so that once it reaches a threshold of, I think, 100,000 signatures, it automatically must be debated in the House of Commons, no matter what it is. As long as it meets that minimum criteria of 100,000 signatures, it must be debated in the House of Commons. Well, that's all very well, but it depends on the validity of the petition, and they can have a debate that lasts a few seconds just so they've ticked the box, but that doesn't mean that an actual law ends up getting written. You know, petitions are one thing, debates are another thing, actual legislation is another thing entirely. Legislation more than just one debate. And for example, in the wake of the UK general election, you had Elon Musk promoting one of these petitions to basically have another election because they didn't like the idea that the Conservatives lost and the Liberals or Labour won. And they got, I think, they got millions of people to sign that petition, but it just got laughed off because it's basically a silly thing to say, right? Because the election's not gone the way we want it, let's have another one, you know? So petitions, again, if you feel as though it's something that you can do and it's a call to action and it's you know, it's satiating that justifiable anger that you have and fire in your belly regarding the wrongs that this organization has done, then you should do it and you should go for it and see how far you can get. But just from my personal experience, I have yet to see a single petition regarding Jehovah's Witnesses actually achieve something. I would be willing to stand corrected if on the next show, if I receive a single email through saying, actually, Lloyd, you're wrong. There was this petition in 2021 and it did this in this country. I will scream about it from the rooftops and say we should all do petitions. But so far, at the moment, I'm a little bit skeptical about petitions. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Arthur.
Yeah, I was also looking for. I was right now Googling about such petitions, but yeah, nothing in
I love
right
this
now.
attitude. Drench is saying, well, Lloyd, I'll be the first. I love that attitude. I love that attitude. Drench, you should be and you will be the first. And you know what? When you are the first, you can come on this channel and we can learn about how you have proven me wrong. And I really want you to prove me wrong. And I'm not saying that ironically or sarcastically. You know, you have my full support. So look out for Drench. And look out for his petition. And I really, really hope that I'm wrong. Who knows? Just because I've had a negative experience with petitions doesn't mean that there's no value in them whatsoever. So I hope I'm wrong.
Well, there definitely is. So.
And I love that attitude.
I'm also behind your back, Drench.
Yeah. Let's just see if there are any. Meg25 is saying, love live stream. Thank you so much. We currently have 132 watching across Facebook, YouTube, and I think Instagram is also a potential means by which you can tune in. Jamila appreciating the response. Thanks, Jamila, and I really appreciate you sending in the question. Victoria Roberts says, just spotted this. Is this going to be a regular thing like the last time? Well, here's the thing, Victoria. It all depends on what the viewer numbers are. I am interested in doing this on a. It's definitely coming back. We're definitely back for season 3. I just haven't decided yet how frequently I'm going to do this. At the moment, I would like to do this every Sunday at around this time, because that works well with my routine of looking after the kids every other weekend and blah blah blah, and the various things that I've got going on in my life right now. So this particular time on a Sunday, or maybe an hour later, is perfect for me if I were to do it on a weekly basis. But if it might be that we do it every 2 weeks or every month, I don't know yet. But the point is, we are back. We just haven't quite decided yet how frequently we'll do it. But I sense in Arthur some enthusiasm for him to be involved.
Yeah. Definitely. It's something I really enjoyed doing years ago, and
yeah, back in the day.
I have the energy to be back and getting also the rest of the team involved.
I'm not sure all of the rest of the team will be. Do you mean the JW Watch team?
Yeah, the current iteration of the JW Watch team.
Yes, the current iteration. Yeah. By all means, I'm sure we'll have a broad range of regular panelists who I'm sure would be happy to be involved. And who knows, we could have the Last Days. What was it?
Last Days quiz.
The Last Days quiz. Although that was hard. That used to be difficult for me to come up with the questions for that, because I literally had to go through loads of old publications to come up with silly quotes, and then do like a truth or lie kind of style quiz where I had to invent one, and then. But it was interesting how many times the one that I invented people thought was the legit one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thumbnail is next level, says Michael Winkler. Thank you. That's actually, we can thank AI for that. Actually, I was having
the fanny bag of facts. Do you remember that segment?
What's that? Sorry.
The fanny bag of facts, where you had you invented a certain fact that wasn't. Yeah, it was either a fact or was a lie.
Did I have a? Yes, the fanny pack of facts. I do remember that. It didn't have an intro. We do have a video intro for Sing Along with Arthur, which I'm going to save for the next show. But yeah, the fanny pack of facts was part of the quiz. Yeah. How did that go? What was the format there?
I don't remember, but we'll look it up, because we definitely have all the shows here on YouTube. So
it was basically just me being a bit naughty and a bit dirty, and revealing something from my fanny pack of facts.
So it was fun. It was enjoyable.
It was good fun. Javine says, have to go to sleep. Here is late. Success, Lloyd. You were the first so-called apostate I have ever heard. And since then, maybe 2021, it was not a big surprise that I was fully awake by 2023. Thanks. Oh, thank you so much, Javine. Really thrilled that I was able to help you in some way. Kit Kat says, I have to rejoin so I can get my lion or pina colada or smoothie, as you said. It is beside my... okay, so you're talking about memberships. Yes, by all means, it'd be lovely to have you rejoin as a member, Kit Kat. Members, patrons are hugely, hugely helpful in continuing the work. Kit Kat also says, every Sunday would be absolutely awesome. Please, please, please do it. Okay. Again, that's the idea, but we'll see what the viewership is like once the live stream's ended. Obviously, there are 126 watching right now, which is fantastic. And if we can get a few thousand views after the fact, then it will definitely incentivize me to make this a regular weekly show with all the bells and whistles. So we shall see. I did actually have a video lined up of Stephen Lett talking, but I don't know whether we have time to watch it now. I was just going to keep it to an hour, so I'll maybe save that for either next week or for a standalone rebuttal. But it was, I don't know whether you saw it, Arthur. It was Stephen Let's Talk, Avoid Inhaling the Toxic Spirit of This World.
Yeah, I skimmed to it, but I'm not prepared to comment on that right now.
No, that's fine. We can save that. I wasn't expecting you to join, so if you hadn't joined, I probably would have gone over it. But I'll keep it in my back pocket, so to speak.
Up your sleeve.
I'll keep it up my sleeve. I'll keep it in my fanny pack of facts.
Exactly.
Safely tucked away. Deborah D, Life of Deb, says, Lloyd, I'm from the US and just wondering if you're watching the Ukrainian and what happened with Trump and the VP. If you don't mind, what's your take on it?
Wow.
Someone has asked me, viewers. I've received a question. So I was avoiding that subject because I realized that there are some viewers of mine who are rather fond of the current president, and I realized that after I made a video about in the immediate aftermath of the election and lost a number of, not that many, it was maybe 50 subscribers or something. But anyway, I am going to try as much as possible to keep the Last Days live stream as politically neutral as possible. But I've already spoken out against fascism, and I didn't watch the entire exchange that happened in the Oval Office with Zelensky and JD Vance and Trump. I watched a few small clips, which was all I could stomach. I try to, as much as possible, protect my mental health. And I've noticed that there is a direct correlation between how much of Donald Trump I expose myself to and how terrible I feel, and how kind of fretful and fearful I feel about the future, as a father and that kind of thing. So for that reason, I'm making a conscious effort to expose myself to as little as possible of Donald Trump at the moment. However, what happened in the Oval Office was extraordinary. All I can say is I think by any objective measure, whether you are Republican, whether you are Democrat, whether you are conservative, whether you are liberal, that is not how you do diplomacy. Even if you feel very strongly in favor of Donald Trump's opinions and views, even if for whatever reason you side with Vladimir Putin regarding Ukraine, if your objective is to achieve diplomacy, if your objective is to achieve peace in Ukraine, you don't do that by having a full-on argument in the Oval Office. And the way that Zelensky was ambushed at a time when he really should have been receiving some hospitality and basic respect as on a statesman level. There was no statesmanship involved in what I saw. And that was concerning, because I think that we are at a pivotal point right now. Certain people will say otherwise. Certain people will say this is just par for the course and there's nothing extraordinary happening. But I have a feeling in my belly that we are at something of a precipice, similar to where the world was in the 1930s, where things could go very, very, very badly wrong very, very quickly. And we do not solve those problems by inviting people on state visits and then ambushing them and gaslighting them and trying to make them feel dreadful for being invaded, because their country was invaded. How dare you? How dare you have your country invaded by someone? Who do you think you are? Was the tone. So I think it's regretful the way that whole conversation took place. And I think that it's if you're looking at this from the point of view of someone who supports Donald Trump and his policies, you're going to have to admit that that was probably not one of his finest moments. And I think it's in the interests of everybody, whether you are conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, for there to be good relations between countries on a diplomatic level. What happens behind the scenes, what happens when the cameras are turned away, is another matter entirely. You can go at it hammer and tongue if you like, and slag someone off and say whatever you like. But when the world's media is trained on world leaders, it's just the way things are done and have always been done, that you need to use diplomacy if you want to get anywhere. So I don't know whether you don't have to agree with any of that, Arthur, but feel free to chime in.
Yes, what I wanted to say is that I think Trump was having a take like this whole thing were one of his business deals. He already said a couple of days ago that he has been doing deals his whole life. And I think this whole crisis, he wants to take care of it just like any business deal. And his tone and his demeanor there in the Oval Office was absolutely disgusting. As a business tycoon who only cares about himself, about his interests, about probably what he perceives as being the interest of the United States, and that's all.
And to be clear, it wasn't just him; it was JD Vance as well. So
Of course.
but yeah, I would agree. You've used some strong words there, Arthur, but I would agree with them, and I think as well, and because you asked this question, Deborah, as an American, and here's the thing: whether we like it or not, America has positioned itself over the last century as the leaders of the free world. That's just how, we all recognize America on that level, and that's something that America and Americans have consciously pushed for, to put themselves in this position. And when you are the leader of the free world, when you are like the foremost country or the foremost superpower that is pushing democratic values, you can't just then, when it suits you, kind of vacate and exit stage left and leave everyone to their own devices, which seems to me to be a little bit what's happening right now. It's one thing to kind of say, oh, everyone else needs to be pulling their weight. And it's true. I think that Donald Trump is right in saying that Europe should be taking more accountability for what happens on its own continent. I agree with that. But I do think that America has put itself in a particular position deliberately and historically. And though it may be convenient to adopt a very kind of isolationist kind of, we're only looking out for ourselves from now on, while that may seem convenient, the reality is a little bit more complicated when you've been positioning yourself front center over many, many decades. Yeah. And I think you owe a little bit more of a responsibility to those who've come to depend on you because you've put yourself in that position. So that's kind of where I stand on what we're seeing with America at the moment. But what I do think is positive, and why I do feel positive, like as of right now, is that whether he intended it or not, and there are some people who will say he did intend it, Donald Trump, this is all some kind of three-dimensional chess game that he's playing. Whether he intended it or not, what has happened in the Oval Office with Zelensky and some of the language that Donald Trump has been using over the last few weeks has brought Europe together. And so we've seen the UK in particular trying to kind of drive these conversations. We had a meeting in Lancaster House in London today with Trudeau showed up, the Canadian Prime Minister, and various other leaders from around Europe. And there's been other meetings going on in Paris, etc. And I think these meetings are set to continue. And I think that, for better or worse, no matter what his motivations are or were, what's happened is that Europe is kind of coming together, and Putin will hate that. Vladimir Putin will hate the fact that Europe is coming more together in its resolve against him. He won't like that at all. So it's going to be interesting to see how things play out, and I feel a little bit more optimistic having seen some of the pushback. And might I add, on the specific subject of what happened in the Oval Office, I very rarely am I proud to be British, because I'm not really a nationalistic sort anyway. I think that nationalism is a very juvenile and primal way of thinking. But I will say that I feel proud that my country embraced Zelensky so quickly after what happened in the Oval Office, to the point where he's had 2 meetings now with the king since Trump's treatment of him in the Oval Office. So let's take the positives. Let's look at things from the lens of, okay, so that happened, but what have we got to be happy about? So
Yeah, and His Majesty was very, very welcoming with Zelensky.
indeed. And I'm sure Trump will not have liked that one little bit, especially after Trump made such a big deal about the letter being handed to him in the Oval Office by Keir Starmer when he visited. Shirley Hunt says you should watch the whole video, not just the last 10 minutes. I really don't want to. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, Shirley, but it's too upsetting for me to see that particular individual. I can stomach so much of him, but I guess I don't need to, because I'm not a political commentator. I've just been asked a specific question. And yeah, there's only so much. I have a certain threshold of Trump that I can withstand before I start to climb up the walls and act like a deranged person. Beauty Rest says, totally agree with you on the political thing. Drench says, Lloyd, what makes you think I need an hour? We need at least 2 hours from you. To which Drench laughs out loud. Okay, well, I won't give you 2 hours. I think 1 hour for now. To get the series, season 3, kick-started, I think 1 hour has been sufficient. And now Arthur and the team are on notice that the Last Days Livestream is back. You are all on notice that the Last Days Livestream is back. There will be more fun and madness to come in coming episodes. If you want to know when the next episode will be, you can follow me on any of the social media things down there. Specifically, I guess X is... I'm back on X now, so I'll keep people on X updated, but I'll also try to hop on the other various platforms and let everybody know when the next episode will be, and hopefully Arthur will be able to join us with a sing-along.
Sure thing. Hopefully, if Jehovah willing.
Jehovah
obviously.
willing. But and I think we can be grateful, can't we, Arthur, that Jehovah's patience in bringing Armageddon, or not bringing it too hastily, is allowing us to have a season 3.
Season 3, yeah. And
there shouldn't really have been a season 2, should there? Because
it was the final part of the final part of the
exactly.
final part of the Last Days.
But now we're in the final part, which shouldn't really be happening. So we should take this as a sign of Jehovah's mercy.
But while our brothers at the Australasia branch are busy filming the Good News According to Jesus series, we are busy filming season 3 of the Last Days Livestream, aren't we?
Yeah, although their budget is much higher.
Obviously,
their budget and backlot is considerably more substantial than mine. Okay. But yeah, viewers, I hope you have enjoyed a little bit of banter, a little bit of levity. Apologies if I've upset you with my thoughts on current political events, but I'm trying to just give you my take. You're watching the Lloyd Evans channel. You're not going to get the Donald Trump take on things, are you? Or the Zelensky take on things. I have my own take on things, but I hope you have enjoyed the show. We will be back hopefully next Sunday, if not the Sunday after. But that's about all we have for you. Thank you so much for watching.
Take care.
Bye-bye.